Program is all about providing leaders and managers with meaningful insights on how to optimize business results by aligning their people strategy to their business strategy. Our goal is to support you as you rise to the challenges of complex decision making centered around attracting and retaining top talent.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Strategic Alignment podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I have on set with me a good friend, and we'll be talking about leveraging the power of execution. How do you go about getting it done? Oftentimes, people have a lot of big dreams and ambitions, and they have talent, they have resources, they have the right community. But for some reason, you're struggling to get it done. So today I have an expert in my midst, but I'm not going to take too much time and talk about him. I'll allow him. Shawn, you mind sharing a little bit about yourself as we dive right in?
Thank you, Jamie, for allowing me to be with you in studio this evening. My name is Attorney Shawn Smith. I'm an elder law attorney here in Central Florida. I'm the sole practitioner of my law firm. We do estate planning. And basically what estate planning is dealing with wills, trusts, and probate, and even something called guardianship.
Wow. So you guys, you know that I have somebody really loaded beside me. So if anything goes wrong on this episode, blame it on the attorney beside me. But you know what, Shawn, as we're here talking about leveraging the power of execution, we recognize that a number of leaders and entrepreneurs and parents and coaches, they have a lot of great plans, a lot of great ideas, but yet still they struggle to hit the mark. I don't want to say they struggle to pull the trigger,
right,
but they struggle to hit the mark. They struggle to do that. You know, why is it so difficult to achieve desired goals and results when you think about the law, leveraging the power of execution?
One of the things that you mentioned in your question is about planning. Growing up, my mother used to tell me, if you fail to plan to fail. So in other words, it's important to have a plan. Anytime you're driving someplace new or at a different destination, you got to have a plan for how you're going to get there. You say you're going to take this vehicle, but not only that, you're going to take this highway and get off at this particular exit. What many people have is they have ideas and they have goals, but they don't have a plan on which to get there. Education was extremely important in my family growing up. So the plan for me, the plan that my parents gave for me is, listen, you're going to finish school. Not only are you going to finish elementary school, but you're going to go to high school and also go to college, but you're not going to finish at college. You have to have a plan to get to law school. And so I studied and I educated myself to prepare myself for law school in an effort to be an attorney. That's the plan that was outlined for me. And that's the plan that we need to have when we're getting a business. What plan do you have in place to get to your destination or to get to your goal?
So when you say that, you know, some folks may say that I have a number of challenges. So what are some of the things? And we're talking to business leaders, we're talking to entrepreneurs, we're talking to, you know, we talk here on the Strategic Alignment podcast. We say leadership is leading up, it's leading down, it's leading across, it's leading yourself. So no matter what sphere of life you're in, you're in a capacity where you're leading either yourself or others. But what do you say to folks who they tend to focus on some of the challenges? They may be planning and starting a business, they may be planning and changing out some employees, because sometimes you have to change your surrounding, you have to change your network, you got to change your community. So, you know, what do you say to them when it comes down to pulling the trigger and making those decisions? Because sometimes it's difficult for that to happen. What do you say to those folks who struggle in that regard?
Well, a lot of difficulties sometimes in executing or reaching your destination is you may have a plan, you may even have a vision, but you don't know how to execute that plan because, as you mentioned, you haven't surrounded yourselves with individuals who have been there and done that. Somebody that you can talk to as a resource for what classes do I need to take? What steps do I need to take? What plan do I need to have in place? You know, give me an idea on how to get there. You know, like I mentioned before in reference to driving, oftentimes there's a GPS who will guide you and direct you. We oftentimes need that GPS in our life. It may be an individual, it may be a person. Sometimes we may need to go out and read a book and research and study what are the best plans to get to this destination. We've also got to realize that we're not the only person that's trying to do this. There's somebody else who's trying to take this step in their life, and what method did they utilize? And oftentimes the internet is an extreme great resource. Many times when I'm planning vacations with my family, I'll use the internet to do some research on the location that we're going. What are some best things to do there? So many times the difficulties with people putting a plan in place is that they don't have the education, the resources, and or the research in order to get it done. And that's why it's important to call on somebody or do the research so you know what is the effective plan for your situation.
So what I'm hearing then, and Shawn, is that you may have the skill set, you may have the right environment, you may have the community that you need, but let's take the community piece out of it. You may have the right idea, but you have to create a circle. You need the right people in your setting. You need people who you could share your ideas with, because as the saying goes, that by yourself you can go fast, but with others you can go further. And sometimes we stew on our ideas, we think about what we want to do, we think our way out of making a decision. But when we have the right community, the right people with us, not only will they be pushing us, but they'll give us the tips and the tricks that we need to take it there. Because an idea is as good as your willingness to execute it.
Exactly.
But that brings me to the piece of fear. You know, I was talking to somebody recently, and they said to me, Jamie, you don't know the weight that comes with making decisions. I know for you, you have your law firm, and you're involved in a number of things. How did you manage to get beyond your fears when making certain decisions? Because every time you make a decision as a leader, as an individual, no matter what you're doing, you always face the risk of losing something. Is it because of the overwhelming thought or feeling of losing why many people do that? And in your case, how did you get beyond that in making those tough decisions? I've been at your practice and I see what you're doing. There must have been a time when you were making those moves whereby you second guessed yourself. Tell us a little bit about that.
There are still times when I'm making moves and I second guess myself. Oftentimes life and your career have an up and down value to it, and you've got to learn to stick with it. But you mentioned that oftentimes people are afraid, right? And a lot of times you have analysis of paralysis because you're analyzing so much that you don't move anywhere. But oftentimes you learn in whatever decision that you make. You taught me, Jamie, that you can learn from failure.
That's true.
So you make a choice and it's the wrong choice, and now you've educated yourself not to make that choice again. You've got an experience in that area not to do that anymore and to go a different route. And if you don't do anything and you have no movement, you don't have that experience. You don't have that education. So oftentimes life is the best educator that you can have. And when we think about fear being an option and not being afraid of failure, we've got to realize, hey, listen, what's the worst thing that can happen? And that may be this endeavor doesn't work. This endeavor fails. But that failure is not a bad thing. That failure is not the end. It's a part of the journey. It's a part of the struggle. And you learn from that failure and do something different the next time.
You know, as you said that, it was just yesterday, I was in a session, one of my clients, a coaching session, and I came across something. It says that you cannot feel your way into an action. You have to act your way into a feeling.
Yes.
As you said that, Shawn, too, is that the powerful thing about it is that what you're sharing is that when you think about leveraging the power of execution, you have to accept the fact that there are going to be challenging moments. You will fail, you will make bad decisions, but those are all a part of the journey.
Yes.
And when you get to the point, you may even make a different decision at the end of it, because the failures that you've experienced would have taught you that, you know what, even though the GPS said take this route, there's something better based on what you've experienced through the failures.
Let me jump on that a little bit more. Growing up, oftentimes one of the fears that you may have is talking to the opposite sex, right? And I have some older cousins, and I would watch them. They were fearless, like, hey, what's your number? How you doing? I was like, what? Why would you do that? What's the worst thing that can happen? They tell you no, right? Or they don't give you the phone number. So I learned from them. So I started now, anywhere I go, if I saw somebody that I thought was attractive, I would step out and try to get to know them. Now, the best thing about that experience with learning people and knowing people of the opposite sex. Now, when I was getting ready to choose my wife and I saw her, there was no fear. You know, you get on the phone, you talk to them, you're able to communicate with them. So, you know, there's so many blessings in stepping forward, in moving forward in any endeavor. And listen, the lesson here is do not be afraid of failure.
And the thing about it, as we talk about leveraging the power of execution, is that if you think about it, you think about the dam as opposed to, or a pond as opposed to a stream moving. The stream will make its way to to the ocean, because the decision is always moving forward, and it will face some regions sometimes had to settle until it gets to that point where it could climb that area. So I think that as we think about execution, we have that power. We are the ones who must make that decision in facing what's coming. And facing what's coming means that you may fail. You may have to change route. You may have to navigate. You may have to empower yourself with some sense of agility. You may have to pivot in terms of doing it, but that's the only way forward and executing. So as you talk about this, Shawn, I don't know if you have ever found yourself in a place or position where you're like, I wish I hadn't made this decision, or you wish you could turn back on what you're doing because you could feel the walls closing in on you because you have just pulled the trigger and you have just executed on something that recognize is bigger than yourself or even what you have in your network.
Oh, for sure. In having a practice, one of the most important and key things is marketing. And you're trying to decide, okay, which avenue should I market? What's the best avenue to market in? And oftentimes, or sometimes, you make a decision in reference to a marketing plan, and that marketing plan does not work. That marketing plan is not moving to fruition. So with that failure, you learn, well, I'm not going to try this plan again. I need to do something else. And you keep trying it until you get to that situation where it does work. I guess many times it's kind of like being a scientist, where the scientist is trying to figure out, how do I put these things together, and they're working on it for months and sometimes even years until they finally get it. And then they come back with, oh, I've created the light bulb, or I've created the computer, or this new piece of ingenuity that we all use. But they've had many steps, many areas, many weeks of failure before they got to that product which finally worked. So
what you're saying too is that execution is a critical part of the journey, because sometimes we see some people who are they're average in terms of their skills, but because they were willing to execute, they were willing to move forward. I'm sitting back and I'm talented, I'm gifted, but guess what? I'm just a wannabe, coulda be, shoulda be, and never be. And I never became that what I could have been, because I failed to make the decision, I failed to execute, I failed to act on that plan, I failed to act on that idea. But as we are closing out, Shawn, I want to ask this question. Is there such a thing as doing too much or taking on too much when it comes down to executing?
That's an excellent question. Is it there a thing of doing too much? And some may disagree, but I think there is. I think you're doing the most, as they say, but you learn in that, right? You learn in man, I'm doing too much. I need to focus in one area. Oftentimes in my practice, just starting out, they say, well, you should do something called rent law, which is everything that comes into to the office, you should do. Some recommend that, right? But I'm in the phase now where I'm focusing on one area, and what that allows you to do is become an expert in that one area. So when people come to you, you can be at a higher level because you focus all your energy and time in doing that specific thing, and you can garner more money for what you're doing. You can charge more. I charge more for the wills and trusts and probates that I do, because that's the area that I focus on. And I know the information, the documentation that I'm providing is worth far more than the person who just does this on a regular basis. I'm able to provide an education based upon my experience and knowledge because I focus in this one particular area.
And I guess too, because you have been executing in that area for such a long time, it becomes like common, it's a part of your nature, because I'm executing daily in this area. I'm failing daily, I'm winning daily, I'm learning daily. So because of that, you're in a position where you're now an expert, whereby you can tell what's about to happen. It's almost as if you have a genie bottle in terms of what you're doing, because you're executing. But then you have person on the sideline, whereby they are always planning or thinking to do it, and they're not doing it. But I want to ask you, when you talk about, quite a few authors, and if you haven't gotten a copy of my book yet, please check out The Face of Leadership. But a number of authors talk about the 4 disciplines of execution. Disciplines of execution. Is there anything you want to share on that, Shawn?
Oh, for sure. My favorite discipline is well, I don't know if I call it my favorite, but the most important discipline is having a system in place.
Okay, you got to talk about that. You got to talk about that.
One of the groups that I'm a part of in my practice is a group called the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys. And what they've done is they've taught a system in growing your practice. They taught a system in executing your practice. And within that system, the more you're a part of that system, the more you work the system, the better your product is in return. So when you have a system, you don't have to guess, what do I do now? When do I do this? Your system will outline that for you. And if you follow that system, you will have a good. The system is kind of like that plan that we spoke about at the beginning. The GPS system that says, make this turn, go that direction, go on this particular street. That's your system, or that should be your system when you're executing a new goal or a new plan, to have that written down, to have that worked out. And you can always rely or go back on that system if you have any questions or concerns or troubles in your area.
Wow, that's I think what a guy's named James Clear in Atomic Habit. In essence, I can't remember the quote at this point, but he says something that your ideas may be great, you may have the best talent, you may have all those things, but it takes systems to take you across the line.
Definitely.
Because the system allows you, when you have an effective system in terms of how you go about executing. For example, you may have 15 tasks that you're looking at, and because you have a system, it allows you to eliminate and see exactly what's priority, what comes first, what comes second, how you should view it and stuff like that. So it makes it easier for you to make decisions. But people who fail to execute, they fail to implement a system, then they don't even know what path they should choose.
Exactly.
But when you have a system, it helps you, it informs your decision in terms of what you're doing. There's one thing I like to touch with you though, Shawn, I'd like for you to share with me in terms of priority. How do you go about choosing as an executor, and I'm saying it in a positive sense for those who are listening, as one who executes when it comes on to what you do as a lawyer and as a business owner, when it comes down to priority, how do you go about choosing the top 3 things that you focus on a weekly or monthly basis? How do you choose the tip of your pen? You know, people may say that that's the most powerful part of anything, the tip of your pen. How do you choose your top 3 things when it comes down to executing?
I don't want to be a broken record, Jamie, but we just talked about having a system. So when I look at my practice and what I need to prioritize, the system outlines that, right? And one of it is in terms of marketing. All right, we have to have a weekly meeting in terms of marketing our practice. What are we doing so that we're sowing seeds today that will reap fruits in the next couple of weeks. Another thing is looking at, well, what cases do I have? So we have a meeting regarding what needs to be done on each particular case. And the system kind of directs that. And what's the difficult part is, and talking about the challenges that people have, is they don't have a system and they don't know where to get this system from. So one of the important things in terms of execution is you've got to write your list down. You may start off by writing down.
Write the list down.
Write the things, write your list down in terms of what you have to do. And you look at your list early in the morning, say, okay, what do I need to do first? What do I need to do second? What do I need to do third? What is the biggest priority? Do I have a meeting this week that I'm going to need to address that? Do I have a court appearance this week that I'm going to need to address that? Do I have a client or an individual that I know is going to be calling about this particular situation, this particular case that I need to be on? So it's a combination. Well, one, I would say, again, it's about that system where you say each week, these are going to be my goals. You write those goals down, and then you execute it on each particular week. Now, of course, it may change or vary a little bit depending on the emergencies or different fires that come out. But again, you handle that based upon your system. So in fact, we have a system in place where oftentimes we have a kind of like a case manager who contacts our clients and gives them updates. But then there's also times where, hey, listen, I meet with them and I talk to them. There may be questions or concerns that they have that the paralegal is unable to answer. So the system that we've set up is that when that happens, I then have a direct call with that particular client, and I talk to them for 15, 30 minutes. And I often find out that once I'm able to educate them and inform them on what's going on, then that client that may be a little agitated is easily calmed down. You'll be surprised at how many times I just get on the phone and automatically
things change.
Things change.
And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you have a system in executing. Because when you don't have a system, you may fail at your first attempt. But when you have a system, you know that I have a plan B in terms of dealing with that. So you're not like, I'm out of the game because I had a no first. But the system is that, okay, it's not my time. Let me have the number. Let me move it through. But I think one of the things that you said that I think it's old school, it's simple, but it works, is that having a list. No matter where you are, how seasoned you are in your field or your area of expertise, you need to have a list. On a daily basis, pull something from your vision board where you're writing down exactly what do I plan on doing, and put them in the order of importance, and put them in a way that if you need to make some adjustment, you can make some adjustment. And Shawn, I'm going to ask you this question. I know it wasn't a part of our talk before the conversation, but at what point do you quit executing on a given thing that is no longer yielding results?
Oh my goodness. At what point do you quit? So ask the question again.
At what point do you quit on a task or a goal or a dream that you have been pulling the trigger on? You're constantly making decisions. You're failing, you're navigating, you're rerouting, you're putting your indicators on, you're changing. And at what point do you say that, you know what? I need to change route. At what point do you make that decision?
You get to that point where you begin to get frustrated, right? You're trying something and it's not working. And so what I do, the practice that I have, is that I call in people who work in my firm. I ask them, listen, we've tried this. This is not working. At least for me, I'm getting frustrated. Do you think there's a better way? Do you think we should continue with this? What has your experience been like in terms of executing this particular situation? And typically, I have about two other people who I listen to their advice on, and I listen to their counsel on. And based upon their recommendation combined with the experience, we then make a decision. Hey, listen, we're not going to move forward. A lot of times they may say, listen, I'm in agreement with you. This is not working. So that's an easy decision that we're all in agreement. Or they may say, listen, this is not working here, but let's tweak it a little bit. And so we may tweak it and then meet about it again the next week. Has that tweak worked? Has that tweak not worked? No, that hasn't worked. So, it's about getting to that point of frustration where you've got to make an assessment or an analysis. Is this working? Right? I think that's another part of the system that people fail to do is look at, what's our return of investment in this product? What is our return of investment with this decision? Let's make an assessment. Let's assess the choices that we're making. Let's assess the decisions that we're making. And in that assessment, you can see, okay, well, yes, this is working, or no, this is not working, and then move forward with that and either quit it or tweak it a little bit.
You've said something here that, I know that it's time for us to wrap the show, but I got to share this. We don't have to execute by ourselves. That I think that, so making your list, you're on the grind, you see exactly what you're heading towards, but it's not working. We don't have to execute by ourselves. When you have a team of people that you're working with, you could always pull them in for them to see something that you're not doing, because as you said, sometimes it's a little tweak, and sometimes you need to just take up, and that's executing too.
Right.
Execution is not just about executing along a path where you will be relegated into antiquity based on the fact that you're making bad decisions. But sometimes executing means that I'm going to execute this project and move to something else, but I don't have to do it by myself. Seeking counsel, connecting with groups of people who have the best interests and experts who can guide us. So as you're out there making your plans or looking to establish or expand your business or whatever you're doing, just remember that as you're executing or you're making major decisions, it's okay to pull others in and seek their feedback as you move your business or your career or your projects forward. You don't have to always rely on yourself to do that, because if you do that, you may just be in a circle in the desert and you're wondering, how am I not getting out of this place, when all you need is a second opinion from somebody else.
For sure. Because you're not going to be the expert in all areas.
True.
There's going to be somebody wiser and has more knowledge and has more experience than you, and getting their counsel is extremely important. It may not be somebody, you may not be at that point where you have a full team. You may need to call somebody who is in that area and say, hey, listen, this is the struggle that I'm having. What is your advice? You got to have your resources.
That's true.
You got to have your resources.
Because if you don't have your resources, You may have great ideas,
Mhm.
but your great ideas may remain on your pillow. But the resources, when you have people, they will help to push it,
Yes.
because you may not have all that it takes to take you there
Mhm.
and executing. And not because you have great ideas, meaning that you know exactly how to do it.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to recap a few things that Shawn shared with us. Make a list
Mhm.
and execute on that, work on that list, and put them in by the order of importance. Get yourself a community of people who have interest in what you're doing, so that they can support, guide you, and give you feedback. And guess what? Remember that you don't have to execute by yourself. The group of people that you have, feed them with your ideas.
Mhm.
Ask for suggestion. Be open for feedback. And the third and the final one is that be willing to be agile, to shift if you must.
Mhm.
Navigate, like you said, with a GPS.
Yes.
Use your GPS, put a plan in place, work with your plan. And most important, what Shawn said, is that we need systems.
Yes.
No matter how creative or skilled you are, we need systems. And by having effective systems, then you'll be able to navigate forward. And when you're weak, when you're burnt out, when you're tired of losing, your system will be the wind beneath your wings taking you there. But before we go, Shawn, tell us a little bit about what you do and where you can be found.
As I mentioned before, I'm an estate planning attorney here in the Central Florida area. I can be found on the Facebook or the web, or the old school. You can contact me at 321-295-7801, 321-295-7801. My website is Shawn, that's SHAWN, rhsmithlaw.net, ShawnRHSmithLaw.net.
As you heard it, guys, thank you for joining us for another Strategic Alignment podcast. It was a pleasure having Shawn with us today. And remember, leverage the power of execution, and you don't have to do it by yourself. And if you're wondering, the quick tip is that get yourself a system that will allow you to do this, and you'll win, and you'll win big. Thank you again for joining us. And please, if you have a moment, jump over on Amazon and grab yourself a copy of the book, The Face of Leadership. Remember, the face of leadership. Thank you guys very much for joining us for another Strategic Alignment podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Strategic Alignment Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to our podcast by visiting our website at www.pottingerandassociatesconsulting.com.